So I recently found out there's a research center being built in the Denver, Colorado area that is studying out bat viruses. They're bringing bats in, they're going to study them out. And I asked myself, what in the Wuhan, China is going on here? And it turns out they're looking for things like COVID or Ebola. And in my research of researching out this facility, I found out that they gave a bunch of medical personnel in the Denver, Colorado area a live Ebola vaccine. Now, with that live Ebola vaccine, what I found out is it has a 31.7% shed rate, meaning if a person that has been vaccinated with this live Ebola vaccine comes into contact with 100 people, somewhere between 31 and 32 of those people will become affected or infected with Ebola. All while the Davos World Economic Forum meeting is screaming that we all need to get ready for disease X. And the WHO in this meeting, the World Health Organization, and the leader of that, which I believe his name's Tedros, said, listen, we have to get this pandemic accord for disease X for when it shows up. My name is Justin. This is Built on Faith Homestead or Leaving Egypt, depending on which video platform you prefer to watch your content on. If any of this sounds interesting, I encourage you to stick around for the rest of the video. Even if it doesn't sound interesting to you, I ask that you stick around for this warning in this video today.
I once was lost, oh, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see.
Alright guys, let's jump right into this. Let's get right into the articles. I will post in the description box down below links to all these articles, and I'll post the articles right here somewhere where you can see them. But I'm just going to read them off my phone real quick. Exclusive, America's fighting new bat lab. $12 million taxpayer-funded NIH research facility in Colorado will import bats from Asia and infect them with deadly diseases in a project with China-linked scientists. It goes on to say the multi-million-dollar project is a collaboration between Dr. Anthony Fauci's old department at the National Institute of Health, the NIH, Colorado State University, or CSU, and Echo Health Alliance, EHA. Do those players all sound familiar? Maybe not the Colorado College, but the NIH and Echo Health Alliance working in collaboration with bat-borne diseases. Proposals seen by this website show how the 14,000 square foot facility could store and study some of the most transmissible pathogens on the planet, including Ebola viruses and COVID. Researchers behind the plan said the lab will boost America's ability to study the role of bats in disease transmission and help us become even stronger in researching emerging zoonotic pathogens. Here's another post about the same facility. It says, a one-of-a-kind bat research facility coming to Fort Collins has CSU scientists fighting misinformation. Gee, I wonder why people would be fighting this bat research facility in Denver, Colorado. I wonder why in the Wuhan people would be so frustrated at the idea that there may be a whole nother research facility along these same lines as what has happened to us the last few years. So not only are they building that lab, but they have also given already a bunch of medical employees the Ebola vaccine. It says this, a few medical employees at Denver Health made history Monday as some of the first employees to receive, listen now, the live Ebola vaccine for prevention measures, the hospital said. For those that take the vaccine, somewhere around 31.7% of them were able to shed Ebola on those around them, meaning that if that person that has got this Ebola vaccine comes in contact with 100 people, somewhere between 31 and 32 people will get Ebola from the vaccine. You say, Justin, that sounds crazy. Vaccines don't shed. Well, according to this study of this live Ebola vaccine, they do. Which, by the way, just to talk a little bit more about vaccine shedding, did you ever come across this from the AP where it says for years officials have used billions of drops of oral doohickey and remarkably effective campaign aimed at wiping out polio in the last remaining strongholds, typically poor and politically unstable corners of the world. Then it goes on to say, now in a surprising twist, in the decades-long effort to eradicate the virus, authorities in Jerusalem, New York, and London have discovered evidence that polio is spreading there. The original source of the virus, you may ask? The oral vaccine. So now that we know that vaccines can shed to individuals, keep in mind they have built this research facility in the Denver, Colorado area, or are building it, to study out bat viruses that can be transmitted to humans, kind of like Wuhan, China. And also, they have, I assume, as a precaution, given medical workers in the Denver area this Ebola vaccine, that if they come in contact with 100 people, somewhere between 31 and 32 of those people they come in contact with will get Ebola. All with the backdrop that the WEF is meeting right now at the Davos group to discuss disease X, or that's a high priority in their meeting. And they go on to give you a little bit of a description of disease X, and what they say in the link down below, you can go find like an hour-long video on it. They say that disease X, the X just stands for the unknown, right? Some unknown disease that may spread across the world. And they talk about, especially Tedros, or however you say his name, Tedros, the WHO leader, he talks about how we have to get the pandemic accord in and implemented, and everybody has to collaborate and to work together, and everybody has to cooperate with the pandemic accord in order to be prepared for the next pandemic. He goes on to say things like, if this generation doesn't do it, then no generation ever will, because we lived through the COVID pandemic. It seems to me to be a pretty big coinkydink to have world leaders pushing for being prepared for disease X, all while the World Health Organization is planning the pandemic accord, and in part of that pandemic accord is digital IDs and all of those kinds of things. And in the middle of all of that, they're saying, listen, we're going to go ahead and give this Ebola vaccine, I assume, as a preventative measure. It doesn't say that, but that's my assumption, to Denver area medical employees, because we're going to put a bat facility right down the road from them to study out Ebola. And, you know, sometimes stuff leaks from a lab. Now, that all seems like a pretty big coincidence, does it not? It seems kind of crazy to consider. All the while, they're saying the next pandemic is going to come from your livestock as they try to ban you from eating meat and changing the way that we do agriculture so that we can't produce the meat. And they're saying that we have to limit the amount of meat that we eat, or we're going to overheat the world, and the world's going to boil over. The oceans are going to boil up and boil over onto the land. No, they're not really saying that. That's me making it up, right? But that is the gist of what they're saying is, listen, the world's going to overheat if you keep eating meat. And on top of that, the next pandemic's probably going to come from your livestock. All while they're building research facilities to study out bad viruses to see how they might get to humans. And they're giving Ebola vaccines already to medical workers in the same area that they are developing the research facility. Listen, I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. The good news is the Bible predicts all these things. The Bible lets us know that there will be mass famines and there will be mass pestilences, and that pestilences is sicknesses. And the Bible says when you see all of these things, not to fear, but to know that your redemption draws nigh. We understand what the world's going to degrade to as children of God, for we are not children of the dark, but we are children of the light. We can see clearly what is going on all around us. So this video is to warn you of what is to come, but it is not so that you are fearful. It is so that you are encouraged. The Bible is true. The Bible is right. Jesus is going to return. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to give your life to God quickly. The only way you can do that is through Jesus. That's the only way. His Son died on the cross for you and I that we might all have the opportunity to be saved. And through that salvation, there is hope that we don't just have hope in this life only, because if we did, we'd be of all men most miserable, but that we have hope in the world that is to come. The Bible says that we have hope in a new heaven and a new earth, right? One without all this madness and craziness. It is almost as if Satan is being allowed to be unleashed, which is what the Bible predicts. Quick side note. Thought of this after I got done recording the video. This is one of the reasons why churches need to stay open, whether it's bad weather events or whether it is craziness going on in the world. We need to let the world know that we view it as essential, because things like this are going to continue to happen. And if we, as the people of God, do not treat gathering together in our local assemblies as essential, then how could we ever convince the world that it is essential to our faith? My name is Justin. This is Built on Faith Homestead or Leaving Egypt. I appreciate you guys watching.